My journey with meso began back in about 2000 when I wasn't feeling well, and I was misdiagnosed and treated for irritable bowel syndrome for about 2.5 years. And then one day I realized that I filled up with ascites, which is fluid, and I had a very thick abdomen, which was unusual, and my clothes weren't fitting. So I went to the doctor, and they sent me for a CAT scan, and the CAT scan showed a little bit of fluid. And the doctor said, "Oh, don't worry about it. We'll keep an eye on you, that's it." And I just still didn't feel good until finally my primary doctor sent me to another doctor. And he said, "I think you need to have an exploratory." And that's when we decided, okay, we'd go for some surgery and find out what was wrong. And the fluid came out negative, but when the surgeon went in, he saw cells he had never seen before except in a college textbook, and it turned out to be the mesothelioma cells. Before I was diagnosed, I was a school librarian in a job that I loved. I was a multitasker, I was a mom, I was a horseback rider, I played tennis and racquetball, and started at 6 o'clock in the morning, stopped at midnight. I did the super mom bit. I loved going places and doing things and shopping, and I was a literacy volunteer, and I was on the literacy volunteer board. And then I got sick, and my life changed, and I had to quit my job, and I had to start depending on other people to take care of me. And I couldn't get my brain to function normally anymore. I can't multitask. I ended up with leukemia from the treatments. I ended up with a hip replacement from the treatments. So I have a very limited life now, and it's affected me mentally, because not only can't I remember many things, or I get confused, or I can't put my words together correctly. But I have to watch my family watch me do this, which is very difficult to do. I was a very free-thinking, self-reliant person, and I can't say that I'm that anymore. I was originally diagnosed in New Jersey by just a general surgeon who had said to me, after we got done with the shock that we were in about what mesothelioma was and that it was a cancer and that I had it, he said he had never seen it except in a college textbook. And this surgeon was a very old doctor. That's how rare this disease is. So at that point, we didn't know what to do, and we started making appointments in New Jersey, but I got a phone call from the surgeon saying that his new partner had worked as under a residency of John Chabot in New York, who is a surgeon there. And I made an appointment with Dr. Chabot. And when we walked in, he said, "Well, so what did the oncologist say?" And I said, "I haven't seen an oncologist. I was told to see you." Well, he called Robert Taub up, and Dr. Taub came in. It was his day off. He came right into the hospital that day, and they conferred about me. And that's when they told me what they could about mesothelioma and what kind of treatments they have. At the time, I went through a major operation called a debulking, where they opened up my whole abdomen and took out as much tumor as they could. The tumor was spread throughout my whole abdomen, and they took the omentum out, which is what holds your organs all in one place in your abdomen. Mesothelioma tends to survive in the lining of the organs. And then I started on different rounds of chemos. Every week it was a different 1 or 2 types of chemo, and at the time, because it was a clinical trial, I had to go into the hospital for a few days. And then I would end up with transfusions as needed, and shots to bring my blood counts up, because the chemotherapy it's devastating. It's not fun to do. It's very aggressive on the body. And after I went through all those weeks and weeks and months of chemotherapy, I went for a second debulking and a hot chemo interperitoneal wash, where they actually heat your body up, and after they open you up, they take out the tumor and they swish hot mitomycin chemotherapy throughout your body. And I really believe that is one of the great factors in peritoneal mesothelioma survivors now. Those that can have that done, I think it kills a lot of the cancer cells that are residual. And then after a couple months, I went into radiation, which through the clinical trial, I believe they found really does not work very well on peritoneal mesothelioma patients. So that was my treatment and how I was diagnosed. And then because of some of the treatments, I ended up with a rare leukemia, diagnosed a few years later. Because when you have cancer and you have treatment, sometimes the body just doesn't come back as normal. You end up with other immune compromised incidences or other factors that either the chemo or the disease has affected. I'm one of the lucky ones. I have almost everything that could be affected. I was exposed to asbestos by washing my husband's clothes. He was a refinery worker, and he would come home filthy, covered in asbestos, especially during the beginning years of his job. And even in the later years, they used asbestos in whatever it is he did. Bags of it, he would put his hands in it. So he was always around asbestos, and I would take his clothes and shake them out and throw them down the basement, and then go into the pile of clothes and bring them to the washing machine and wash them. Or sometimes he would just come to bed without taking a shower. He'd be so tired because he worked so many double shifts or time and a half shifts that he would just go to bed right next to me. Could have been in his hair, but it was through his work. And secondhand exposure is one of the major ways that people are exposed to asbestos. When I first learned that my mesothelioma was caused by asbestos, I was pretty angry. I felt that the corporation my husband worked for, Exxon, they had known years and years and years ahead of time, back in I think the late 30s, what asbestos did to people. And they never really let on to the workers. So there's a lot of anger. And I felt for all the other workers who still worked there or who worked when I did, and their cause of death was listed as cancer, and no one ever bothered to find out what kind of cancer had killed them. I think there needs to be some justice made, some accountability